Neighbors began to notice that Sophia, who lives on the third floor, was literally experiencing a second youth. The woman had recently turned 70, but she was increasingly beautiful. It wasn't just her new clothes, she was always smiling, walking, and humming something under her nose. The pensioner's blue eyes sparkled with happiness for the first time in a long time. Many people were embarrassed to ask directly what the problem was. The elderly lady did not have any admirers, her relatives had not come for a long time. In short, life continued in the same way, nothing changed at first glance. But Letitia, the retired woman who lived in the apartment opposite, couldn't take it anymore, and one day she asked a direct question. "Sophia, you look great," she began. Sophia seemed satisfied. "Thank you, Letitia. You look beautiful too. And what is the reason for this change, or are you just in a good mood?" asked a nosy neighbor. "I'm in a good mood, but that's not all." Sophia smiled and gestured for her to enter. Letitia obediently entered the apartment, eager to find out the details. She was surprised when Sophia returned with a small trunk in her hands, its surface covered in velvet. "Did you want to show the trunk?" she asked, surprised. Sophia nodded and showed the contents. There were chains, brooches, earrings, and rings. "See what beauty I have," said the old lady proudly. "So many things." The guest looked at the jewelry, fascinated. "But from where, Sophia? Give me these treasures." Sophia whispered to her, "Luis gave it to me." The neighbor looked at her with mixed feelings. "Luis? But he passed away 5 years ago." Sophia's husband had indeed passed away after a long illness. It took the widow a long time to recover, supported by her grandchildren. "You don't understand anything," Sophia waved her hand. "A man dies, but his soul is eternal. That's why his soul returns to the apartment where he lived. Have some sense, please, Letitia," she called her. "Luis, no, unfortunately, he can't come to you." The widow abruptly closed the trunk and said resentfully, "And I say he could. And there is and cannot be any other explanation, Letitia." The neighbor knew it was useless to argue with her, but tried to persuade her anyway. "Sophia, but why does the soul bring you something material? An ornament? Why doesn't she just come and talk to you?" Sophia looked dreamily somewhere in the distance and said, "So, my Luis wants it that way. He brings me gifts silently, without ostentation, and people only know how to gossip." The conversation wasn't very good, and Letitia soon left. On Friday, Letitia went to the countryside, and on Sunday, she returned home and found Sophia in a good mood at the entrance. She had something shiny in her hand. "Letitia, I told you," exclaimed the widow triumphantly. "Luis came to visit me again yesterday and brought me a wonderful brooch. Check it out." Letitia took the brooch in her hands and whistled. There was a large ruby in the middle and diamonds sparkling around the edges. She had never seen such an expensive piece before. "It's worth a fortune, Sophia," she whispered. "Why invest it all in money, honey?" Sophia smiled. "I'm not selling anything. It's a souvenir of Luis. We have to resolve this." The neighbor maintained her position. "It's not about your late husband, it's something else. Come to my house, let's talk over a cup of tea." Letitia discovered that 3 people had the keys to her neighbor's apartment. "Do you remember that I left them for you, and I also gave them to my grandchildren, so that Alana and Paolo could come and see me," said Sophia. Letitia knew her neighbor's family well. Sophia's daughter had moved abroad a long time ago, leaving her mother with her children from previous marriages. Granddaughter Alana had lived away from her grandmother for a long time. After graduating from school, the girl moved to the college dormitory and then got a job. The granddaughter rarely came to visit her grandmother. Paolo, unlike his sister, spent more time with Sophia. Everything was fine until the police broke into the house. The grandson was suspected of something, but he managed to get away with it. He later confessed to his grandmother that he had, in fact, committed the crime by losing a bet. Sophia couldn't bear the shame and kicked Paolo out of the house. Over time, their relationship improved, but the grandson still preferred not to visit her. Letitia decided to watch her neighbor's apartment through the peephole. She suspected that one of her grandchildren, Alana or Paolo, was bringing her jewelry, but she didn't understand why. Maybe they wanted to drive the lady crazy or just make fun of her. The first few days of observation were not successful. Letitia couldn't stay at the door all day. She was distracted by cooking, shopping, and going to the clinic. A few days later, Sophia knocked on his door and proudly displayed another piece of jewelry, a gold chain. "Luis gave it to me again," she insisted, but the neighbor didn't even look at the gift. Letitia waved her hand and asked, "Sophia, has anyone come to visit you? Maybe the grandchildren?" No one came to the house, only the plumber came the other day because there was a problem with a tap in the kitchen, Sophia replied. Sophia replied in surprise, "What's the matter?" "It can't be the plumber, he's never been to your house before." Possible options crossed her mind. "Not the plumber, I'm sure." The widow was indignant. "I'm telling you, Luis does everything." Letitia didn't argue with her anymore, but soon found Paolo by accident at the door of the house. The young man hadn't seen his grandmother's neighbor for a long time and, not recognizing her, he passed by her. She followed him slowly, trying to remain unnoticed. What was Letitia's surprise when, at the entrance, she came face to face with Paolo on the stairs. The frustrated boy almost knocked her down as she was coming down. "You can be more careful, there are people walking around here," commented the retiree in a threatening manner. "Excuse me, please," said Paolo thoughtfully and recognized her immediately. "Grandma Letitia? It's you." The neighbor smiled and said, "Yes, of course. And you, Paolo, are a little sad." The young man pointed to the upper floors. "I wanted to visit my grandmother, but she's not at home." "Do you know where she is?" There's no answer on the phone. Sophia's voice is heard from the entrance. "Soraya went to the store, I understand." "Don't worry, she'll be here soon. You can wait for her at my house or meet her at the store." Letitia offered, and Paolo offered to help his grandmother with the shopping. The neighbor stayed on the landing, she wanted to meet Sophia. 20 minutes later, a happy grandmother and a satisfied grandson appeared at the apartment. They were surprised to see their neighbor near the door. "Letitia, what's going on?" Sophia asked. "Are you waiting for me?" Sophia noticed that Paolo was in a hurry. "Yes, I was asked to go to work, a man got sick," the grandson nodded. Letitia was going to unmask Paolo, so she asked his grandmother to check the trunk. Sophia was surprised, but agreed. Nothing new appeared or disappeared. Letitia asked the question, "Your grandson was walking past the door and I ran into him at the entrance, Paolo. Explain the situation. He has the key to your apartment, so he could have brought or taken the jewelry." Paul was furious. "Are you suggesting that I'm stealing? I didn't take or bring anything, what's the problem?" Paul was angry. "Here are the keys to the apartment, Grandma, and don't even think about me. I stopped these dark acts a long time ago." The young man threw the keys on the table and hurriedly left the apartment. After this incident, Sophia accused her neighbor of meddling in her own affairs. She refused to speak to her and kicked her out the door. Letitia was upset and stopped watching her friend's apartment. She suspected Paolo, and now that he had returned the keys, there was nothing to worry about. At least that's what the pensioner thought, until she considered that the neighbor's grandson could have made a duplicate of the key. Sure enough, a few days later, Letitia saw Sophia bragging to a mutual acquaintance about a new piece of jewelry, a gold bracelet supposedly given to her by her late husband. The two friends met at the entrance of the house. At first, the widow was reluctant to speak to Letitia, but then she went from anger to pity. "After all, you were wrong, Letitia," she said. "I thought it was my grandson tricking me into bringing me jewelry, but it was Luis. See, he brought me a new bracelet." The neighbor looked at the sparkling golden wonder and shook her head. "Sophia, I know Paolo gave you your keys back. But have you ever considered that he might have made a copy?" asked Letitia. Sophia laughed and replied, "Duplicate? Letitia, my grandson went north and got a job. He's out of town." The neighbor agreed that it was probably impossible for Paolo to have sneaked into his grandmother's apartment, but she did not speak out loud about the fact that her grandson had given the duplicate to someone else. Thinking about this, Letitia began to suspect her neighbor's granddaughter, Alana. She was probably up to something or wanted to make her grandmother crazy. The pensioner knew where Alana lived, but she couldn't just show up at her neighbor's house without asking. Letitia even wanted to install a camera to discover the mysterious guest, but no one was willing to help her, and the retired woman had no grandchildren or young people. "Alana, hello," Letitia said. "Hello. Good afternoon, what brought you here?" The girl was surprised. "Letitia, I'm here for you, my dear." "Alana, what do you mean by that?" "Letitia, I saw you myself at your grandmother's house today." "Alana, what do you mean?" "I haven't been to my grandmother's house. I haven't been there in 6 months." "Letitia, why are you lying to me?" The pensioner grabbed the sleeve of Alana's leather jacket. "Alana, what are you talking about? I didn't go to my grandmother's house today. I haven't been there in 6 months. And that jacket isn't even mine, belongs to Juliet. I rent a room here with a girl to save money." "Letitia, you must be wrong. This jacket has very distinct stars on the back. It's unique." "Alana, I've known Julieta for about 2 years. Do you think she went to visit my grandmother?" "But that's bullshit, you are making assumptions." "Letitia, tell Julieta about your grandmother?" "Alana, yes, but not in detail. I showed photos and told some stories about her. I thought Juliet was interested." "Letitia, and where is Juliet now?" "Alana, she went somewhere. She's upstairs, in her room." Letitia told Alana the details of the story with her grandmother. They went up to the right floor. The pensioner was eager to speak to Julieta. They were welcomed into the room by a pretty brunette who, from afar, resembled Alana. After the standard greeting, Letitia decided to get straight to the point. "Letitia, Julieta, why did you go to visit Alana's grandmother?" The girl looked at her in surprise. "Juliet, why would I go there? I was not there." "Letitia, I saw her last week. You were wearing the same leather jacket." "Juliet, there aren't many jackets in the world." "Letitia, this one has very distinct stars on the back. It's unique." "How long have you known Juliet?" "Alana, I've known Julieta for about 2 years. She rents a room here with a girl." "Juliet, it's true. But why are they making all this fuss?" "I went there, yes. I looked around Soria's house, but didn't catch anything." "Alana, Julieta, I shouldn't have done that. My grandmother is already going through a difficult time." "Juliet, sorry, Alana. I didn't catch anything, I swear. I was just curious. Her jewelry is so beautiful." "Letitia, why did you do this without telling Alana or your grandmother? It could have scared them." "Juliet, I didn't think straight, I was being silly. It wouldn't hurt. I won't do that again, I promise." "You were at your grandmother's house today, weren't you?" Alana looked at her in surprise and replied, "What do you mean by that?" "I didn't go to my grandmother's house today. I haven't been to my grandmother's house in 6 months." "Why are you lying to me?" "Letitia, grabbing his sleeve. I saw you myself last week, you were wearing the same leather jacket. The girl got angry and pulled his arm, saying, "What are you talking about? I told you I didn't go to Grandma's house, and the jacket isn't even mine, it's Juliet's. I rent a room here with a girl, it's more that cheap. You must be mistaken." The pensioner looked at the jacket and shook her head. "No, she has very distinct stars on her back, it's unusual." "How long have you known Juliet?" Alana wondered. "Do you think she went to visit her grandmother?" "But that's nonsense." "Did you tell Julieta about your grandmother?" asked Letitia. "Yes, but not in detail. I showed photos, told some stories about her. I thought Julieta was interested," explained the girl. "Where is she now?" asked Letitia. "She went somewhere, she's upstairs, in her room," Alana replied. Letitia told Alana the details of the story with her grandmother, and they went up to the right floor. The pensioner was eager to speak to Julieta. They were greeted in the room by a pretty brunette who, from a distance, resembled Lana. After the standard greeting, Letitia decided to get straight to the point. "Julieta, why did you come to see Alana's grandmother?" she asked. The girl looked at her in surprise and said, "Why would I go there? I wasn't there." "I saw you last week, you were wearing that leather jacket," insisted the pensioner. "There aren't many jackets in the world," Juliet began. "Alana, check your key to Grandma Soria's apartment," Letitia asked her friend's granddaughter. She ran to the closet, looked in the drawer and said, embarrassed, "And there are no keys." "What are you going to tell us now, Juliet?" asked the pensioner. Juliet smiled and gritted her teeth. "To hell with you. I should have made a duplicate. Yes, it was me." "But why did you make fun of your grandmother?" she retorted. Lana was horrified. "You should have kept your mouth shut. You didn't go see her once in 6 months," Julieta continued. She stared. "That's why they think their grandmother is lonely and crazy, that she runs around the yard with her jewelry. Nobody thinks like that, and I just didn't have time because I worked so much," she explained. Lana almost cried. "Juliet, aren't you ashamed? You better shut up," said Letitia, shouting at her. "I'm not going to keep quiet. Do you think your grandmother is a saint?" "She's not, but I'm not going to tell you anything in front of you. I'm going to tell you the true story of Soraya's grandmother," declared Julieta, laughing. "She's fine, we'll take her there, but then we'll go to the police," Lana said. "And you're not going to prove anything. I'm going to say that I went to my grandmother's house at your request, and you even gave me the key," Juliet teased. "You're so nasty," Lana complained. "Calm down, you two. We have to act calmly now," asked Letitia, interrupting. The three immediately went to Soria's house. When Juliet found herself in the family apartment, she stopped smiling and became sad. Lana hugged her grandmother, who was sitting on the couch. Soria felt better and asked the neighbor to leave. "Why did you come here?" "Who is this girl?" asked the widow. "She came to see you, not Louise," replied Letitia, speaking softly. "Her name is Juliet, a common thief. She kept the jewelry she stole from other people in her house." "Oh, my God, how horrible," Soria exclaimed indignantly. "She took it from other people, kept it with you and then pawned it." "But you're not supposed to talk about conscience, Grandma," murmured Julieta. "Wait. Where's my necklace?" Soria asked. Letitia came to her senses. "I put it around my neck this morning. I don't understand." Juliet smiled and took a gold chain from her pocket. "Isn't this what you're looking for? Here it is." "So it's true," exclaimed the widow, surprised. "I've had this kind of manual dexterity since I was a child. I just didn't know where to use it. I started stealing things I liked, but people don't realize they're losing things. I often worked in public places, revealed Julieta. Of course you worked, Lana commented. I consider this my calling. You told me about your grandmother, about the key, so I decided to use it, Juliet continued. Soria knew my grandmother. Why not get revenge on her? The widow was worried. I don't understand what kind of revenge there can be. Julieta leaned towards her and said, slowly, do you remember Deborah and what you did to her because of a boyfriend? When Soria heard this name, she immediately turned pale and trembled for several minutes. She couldn't say a single word, tears gushed from the widow's eyes. Finally, she found the strength and whispered, I didn't want to, but there was no other way. What happened, Grandma? Lana asked, worried. Letitia also sat next to her friend, upset with her reaction to her guest's words. Juliet looked at what was happening with a laugh. There is always a way out, but you chose the worst way out. I know that for sure, because I read my grandmother's letter. She didn't lie, she told my mother the same thing. What's the problem, Letitia? Asked Lana, not understanding her friend's reaction. Letitia couldn't take it anymore and vented. Soria remained silent, wiping away her tears and looking at Julieta, her expression desolate. Soria decided to remain silent, and then Julieta said, I'll tell you, Soraya. Deborah and you were two friends who fell in love with the same guy, called Luis. He chose Deborah, but you didn't like that. You decided to take the boy away at any cost. You stole a girl's jewelry, put them on Deborah and reported the thief to the police. I wanted everyone to have a girlfriend like yours. You loved Louise and would do anything to be together, said Julieta, between tears. Alana and Letitia were paralyzed, unable to believe what they were hearing. No one expected this explanation from Juliet, and the guest continued, the grandmother had been arrested. Maybe she didn't receive a real sentence now, but it was a different time. She was sent to prison, that's all. After a few years, she went out and met my grandfather. They got married. Unfortunately, after her arrest, Grandma Deborah's health was no longer the same. She started having problems and didn't live long. I know her story through my mother before she died. My grandmother wrote her a letter telling her everything. I only saw Grandma Deborah in photos. And that's your fault, he pointed to Soria. How I wanted you to go crazy, but you got emotional from the story of your late husband's parish. The widow could not hold back her tears. She was shaking and her head was down. I spent my whole life with this burden. We were happy with Louise, but I always thought about Deborah. Well, now there's no way out. Forgive me for my grandmother, please, whispered Soria. The daughter continued, I don't even want to talk to you. Goodbye. May you be judged by the highest court. Julieta left the apartment, and Letitia and Lana just wanted to stop her, but Soria stopped them, let her go. Don't touch her. The granddaughter tried to object, but the neighbor signaled her to be quiet. After being sedated, the grandmother fell asleep. When Soria's secret was revealed, Lana had to move to her grandmother's house. Letitia could no longer deal with the situation alone, and Paolo, who worked in the north, rarely came to his hometown. So, the granddaughter and the neighbor helped Soria alone. The widow was now afraid of being alone, as it seemed like someone was going to break into the apartment. Lana never saw Juliet again, but a year later, she learned from mutual friends that several victims had filed a report. Julieta appeared in court and received a sentence.